What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. It is a short week this week here in week 13 of the fantasy football season. We got a lot of Thanksgiving Day games, some Black Friday games, some Sunday games, a lot of football here this week. So with that being said, I wanted to get you guys, as I usually do, my top 36 running backs heading into the weekend. That way you guys know how I'm viewing these players if you're trying to make some lineup decisions on where I rank them and how I would be viewing them if I'm plugging them into the lineup. So without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these running backs. All right, so like I said, as you can see on the left side of the screen, these are the tiers in which I am viewing these players, how I'm going to be viewing them if you're plugging them into your lineup. The guys at the top, those are the elite RB1s here this week, and the guys at the bottom are more so just flex plays for me heading into the week, into the weekend, whatever you want to view it as. Like I said, it's a full week of football here over here in week 13. So let's just start it off with the top tier. For me, it's the elite RB1s, and I only got one guy this week. It's Jahmyr Gibbs for the Detroit Lions. He's kind of been in a tier of his own over the last couple of weeks, and he gets a Thursday matchup. It is a bad matchup on paper against the Green Bay Packers, who are giving up 2.6 fantasy points below the expectation. That is the 6th best in the NFL. But like I said, the production for Gibbs has been unmatched over the last few weeks. He's a player that I think is a set it and forget it. That's very obvious. Elite RB1 going into the week, and I am not worried about any matchup with Jahmyr Gibbs moving forward. He has been dominant. Now, the other guys who have also been good are going to be the high-end RB1s, and I got a couple of them. It's going to be Derrick Henry, Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and sneaking into the tier is going to be Bijan Robinson. Now, I got two matchups in this tier that I want to talk about. Derrick Henry's is going to be the first one. He gets a Thursday Thanksgiving Day game. That is going to be a very good matchup for him on paper against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently ranked 32nd against the running back position, giving up 9.3 fantasy points above the expectation. If there was any matchup for Derrick Henry to unleash and kind of run wild, it's going to be this matchup here against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are dead last against the position. Another player in this tier I think we should talk about from a matchup perspective is going to be Christian McCaffrey, who comes in as my running back 5. He gets a bad matchup on paper at the Cleveland Browns, who are currently ranked 5th best against the running back position, giving up 3.9 fantasy points below the expectation. That said, it's Christian McCaffrey. He can get it done in a numerous amount of ways in the receiving game, in the run game, however you want it. Still think he's a top 5 guy just based off of the volume, the utilization alone. Should still be a player that I think is going to dominate this week, but typically he's towards that top of the tier or in the elite RB1 tier. This week, the matchup is pushing him down just a little bit. Moving on to my tier 3, looking at these players, these are the low-end RB1s here in week 13. I got 6 guys in this tier. At 7, I got TreVeyon Henderson. 8, Saquon Barkley. 9, Chase Brown. 10, James Cook. 11 is going to be Kyren Williams, and 12 is going to be Travis Etienne Jr. 3 good matchups in this tier to talk about. The first one's TreVeyon on Monday Night Football against the New York Giants. Right now, they are ranked the 2nd worst defense against the running back position, giving up 7.4 fantasy points above the expectation. Is going to be a little bit of Ramondre Stevenson mixed in as well. I think the high-end, ultimate high-end outcomes of TreVeyon Henderson are probably not going to be something that happens as often with Stevenson in the lineup, but I still think he has a lot of potential to still perform as a high-end option for the most part, just not like elite RB1 overall type performances like we saw the last 2 weeks with Stevenson out of the lineup. So I think right now he's a low-end RB1 for me. Like I said, love the matchup. Still think it's going to be great for him the rest of season. Another matchup that is going to be good on paper is going to be Saquon Barkley, who plays the Chicago Bears on Friday. That is going to be an interesting matchup because right now Chicago is ranked 26th against the running back position, giving up 1.9 fantasy points above the expectation. Philly has struggled to run the ball. Lane Johnson being injured is also going to make that tougher to do, and Saquon Barkley is battling a groin injury at the moment. I think Saquon Barkley is going to play. If he plays, the matchup says it should be good. It's going to be a matter of if Philly can get it together. This is also a good matchup for them against the receiver position, so kind of just a good spot for the Eagles to get right. I think Saquon Barkley, still a player though I'd be viewing as a top 10 play. Let's go to Travis Etienne. He's the last player that I think we should talk about in a good matchup. This is going to be on the road at the Tennessee Titans. 3.9 fantasy points above the expectation, which is 29th in the NFL. Etienne should have an opportunity here to finish as a low-end RB1 this week based off of the matchup and probably the game script in this one as well. Moving on to tier 4. Tier 4 is going to be those safe running back 2s here in week 13. It's going to start at 13, which is Breece Hall, going to Jaylen Warren, RJ Harvey, Javonte Williams, Ashton Jeanty, Bucky Irving, welcome back into the tier rankings, Kenneth Walker, and last but not least, I got Josh Jacobs in this tier as well. So kind of a big tier here of the safe RB2s. There's a lot of talented players and a lot of matchups to talk about. Breece Hall gets a good matchup against Atlanta. Currently, they're ranked 25th against the running back position, giving up 1.5 fantasy points above the expectation. So Breece Hall should be in store for a solid week. Jaylen Warren can be the same type of situation here. He plays against Buffalo. Buffalo is ranked 30th against the running back position, giving up 4.4 fantasy points above the expectation. Aaron Rodgers probably going to be back into the lineup as well. That should mean good things for Jaylen Warren. Harvey also gets a good matchup on the road at the Washington Commanders, who are currently ranked 27th against the running back position, giving up 2.4 fantasy points above the expectation. No J.K. Dobbins probably for the rest of the season. Harvey, potential league winner down the stretch, especially if he keeps getting good matchups like this one is on paper. Javonte Williams is the one player or one of two players that has a bad matchup this week on paper. He plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is for some Thursday Thanksgiving football. Javonte Williams obviously been a darling for us in fantasy this season after being one of the best value picks we could have made. However, Kansas City is currently ranked second against the running back position, giving up 5.5 fantasy points below the expectation. This is going to be a tougher matchup all around for Dallas, who has been very good on offense as of late. I think this could be a tougher matchup for Javonte Williams, hence why he is pushed down into the safe RB2 category for me, and more so as my running back 16. I do have a tough matchup also for Josh Jacobs on the road at the Detroit Lions. Now, he is a little bit lower in the rankings as well because I'm still not 100% certain he is playing. I wanted to talk about him nonetheless. This is a bad matchup, like I said, on paper. Detroit is the fourth best against the running back position, giving up 4.5 fantasy points below the expectation, and like I said, Jacobs is dealing with that knee injury, so if it's Emmanuel Wilson for one more week, we'll see where he lands. He'd probably be more, I think Emmanuel Wilson would be more of a fringe RB2 than a safe RB2, but Jacobs' talent is much better, I think, than Emmanuel Wilson's. Let's go to tier 5. Tier 5 for me is going to be the fringe RB2s. I got 5 players in this tier, 3 matchups to talk about. It's going to be Rico Dowdle, Quinshon Judkins, Kareem Hunt, Devin Neal, and Kenny Gainwell as the fringe RB2s. Dowdle has been one of the better players in fantasy this year as well, one of the better values that we could have found, probably the waiver wire wonder of the year if you picked him up. This is a very bad matchup on paper. Los Angeles Rams right now are currently ranked first against the running back position, giving up 6.1 fantasy points below the expectation. This is going to be tough sledding for Rico Dowdle in this one, coming off of a pretty low amount of carries in that last week's matchup on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers. Could be another bad week in store for Rico Dowdle. I'm not super confident in playing him this week. Kareem Hunt has a good matchup at the Dallas Cowboys. They're currently ranked 28th against the running back position. Isaiah Pacheco should be back in this matchup. Right now, Dallas is giving up 3.3 fantasy points above the expectation. So Kareem Hunt, he is going to be the 1A for me right now. We'll see how much Pacheco has worked in, but if Pacheco gets worked in even more, I think both of those guys, Pacheco and Hunt, could be pretty cannibalistic to each other's fantasy production. Let's go to Kenneth Gainwell, who does have a good matchup, like I said, with Jaylen Warren. Aaron Rodgers back into the lineup should apply to Kenny Gainwell. This has been a 1-2 punch all year long. Kenny G and Jaylen Warren, I think this is probably a safe spot to flex Kenny Gainwell if you needed him. Let's go to my low upside RB3s here. This is going to be tier 6. I got a total of 6 players in this tier as well. So we're going to kick it off with Aaron Jones. I got Woody Marks, Kamani Vidal. We'll see if Omarion Hampton is back. Tyrone Tracy, David Montgomery, and DeAndre Swift in this tier. 3 matchups. They're all bad matchups, hence why these players are getting pushed down the rankings. It's going to be Aaron Jones at Seattle. I talked about it with Justin Jefferson in the wide receiver episode. It's also going to be Max Brosmer, who's going to be the UDFA quarterback 3 for the Minnesota Vikings, who's going to be under center. Don't have a ton of confidence in this offense against the Seattle defense this week, who is the 8th best against the running back position, only allowing 1.9 fantasy points below the expectation. So not great for Aaron Jones here in this one. Kamani Vidal, like I said, we'll see if Omarion Hampton is back. If Hampton is back, Vidal is not a top 36 running back. And I think Hampton would probably go up into the safe RB2 range if he is back into the lineup. Tyrone Tracy gets a bad matchup at the New England Patriots, who are top 3 right now against the running back position, giving up 5.5 fantasy points below the expectation. Tough sledding here for Tracy and probably Devin Singletary as well. David Montgomery also gets the bad matchup that we talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs. This one's against Green Bay on Thursday. And unlike Gibbs, who I do think is matchup proof, doesn't matter, he's still going to dominate. David Montgomery is much more matchup dependent, and why I have him as a low-end RB3. He's probably a guy that if he gets into the end zone, you feel happy. If he doesn't, you would have been better off starting a lot of players over David Montgomery. He is going to be very touchdown dependent in this one. Let's go to tier 7. Tier 7 is going to round out the rest of the top 36. I got Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, Bashal Tootin, Kyle Monungai, and Tony Pollard. In this one, 3 matchups to talk about, there's a good matchup that I said with TreVeyon Henderson that applies to Ramondre Stevenson as well. Stevenson has less juice, maybe going to get more goal line carries. We'll see what happens in this one, but this is a great matchup on paper for the Patriots running backs. I do think Bashal Tune gets a good matchup that we talked about with Travis Etienne. Tune didn't look that good last week. He looked good the week prior. We'll see what happens here this week. Maybe he's a little bit healthier. That ankle isn't bothering him as much, but for now, still just a flex play for me. And then Tony Pollard gets a bad matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's just sneaking into this tier. I have very little, if any, confidence in playing Tony Pollard or any of these Tennessee Titans at the moment. But on paper, they are the 7th best, giving up 2.5 fantasy points below the expectation. You could argue, and I'd actually hear the argument, that honestly, Tony Pollard should be taken out, and I'd rather just play Pacheco, who has that good matchup against Dallas, as the 36th running back. Or maybe you have a guy like Zonovan Knight, maybe a guy like Chris Rodriguez, maybe a guy like Trey Benson, if he practices this week and gets into the lineup, that you would rather have there above a guy like Tony Pollard. And I think if Benson's back in the lineup, he's probably even higher. So there you have it. That is my top 36 running backs in week 13. But as always, if you guys found something today informative, entertaining, and or actionable, please do me the favor and hit that like button. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. You don't want to miss any of the future content. I did mention on yesterday's Q&A that we were still a little TBD on Friday's Q&A, with there being a holiday here this week, people traveling, things going on. Still undecided. We'll see how that day kind of comes. I'm going to keep it, more so just something we're going to decide on whether or not we're going to do it pretty last minute. I'll let you guys know. Obviously, if you guys are in the Discord or if you're subscribed, you'll see that happen. So make sure you're subscribed, like I said, and go join the free Discord. The Discord is free to join. There is no risk in joining that. We're in there helping you guys with your fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. But with all of that out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today. Let me stop stumbling through this outro. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Until then, peace out.